Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello Jr.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
Param, this was an exciting weekend for Paizo fans, and Pathfinder fans, I guess. It got a little bit more first-hand excitement because it was PaizoCon. Every year, Paizo, as they put it, throws themselves a con, which points out how great they are, and people show up to tell them, yes, you are right. And that's what happened this past weekend in Seattle. From Friday to Sunday, we got non-stop Pathfinder and Paizo-focused entertainment at this convention, hosted by Paizo, featuring Paizo. Just about the entire Paizo staff was there, except I believe Gary Tedders was watching The Office.
Aw, Gary gets stuck at The Office every time.
I know. That's where he likes to be. I don't know. Somehow he always draws the short straw.
That seems like a really loaded straw.
Now, Param, I know that you didn't get to go to PaizoCon again this year, but surely the news that was coming out of PaizoCon was pretty exciting for you at home.
Oh, yes. I was watching all the Twitter feeds and your Facebook feeds and all that jazz the whole time, trying to go, ooh, what are they going to announce? What are they going to do? What are they going to announce? And lots of pictures that made me lots and lots of jealous.
Excellent. Well, there was a lot of news. There was probably more news than you can cover in a tweet. So we're going to talk about it. We're pretty much dedicating the first half, 3/4 of this episode just talking about PaizoCon, talking about the news that came out of PaizoCon, and going into the details. What happened at PaizoCon that we should all be excited about, and what can we look forward to in the future?
Excellent. Now,
unlike last year they started the con by giving out the brand new product catalog, and it was loaded with about 6 months worth of new products, some of which weren't even announced at that con. So we had hints of little things like Inner Sea Combat. That was announced, but not actually announced anywhere else yet. There was no product catalog this year. So everything we know is what was told to us at the con, mostly at the preview banquet, which I'm always surprised when people tell me they're at the con and they're like, I'm probably not going to go to the preview banquet.
What?
I know! So let's just take a second to point out.
I've secured tickets to PaizoCon 3 years in a row now before I found out I can't go. And every time it's get the ticket, get the banquet.
Yes.
In that order, immediately.
That's absolutely right. That's exactly how I think about it too. And yet some people were like, well, sure, we're in Seattle. We're here for Paizo stuff. We like the Paizo news, but we're not going to pass on this delicious meal at a reasonable price where we get to sit with a Paizo employee and have a one-on-one, or, well, one-on-table conversation with them, and then get information right from the horse's mouth. Be the first people there to hear about these new products. And they're like, nah, I don't get it.
I mean, it's like going to Gen Con as a Pathfinder fan and not registering for the special.
It's a lot like that. Before we get into the first bit of news, I'm just going to say hello to everyone that's in chat. And by chat, I mean people that are commenting on our YouTube page. We've already got Falcon Lars, Bastille, Anthony Lee, and Brite Beerloaf. Hello, guys. If you guys have any questions about what happened at PaizoCon, I know Anthony Lee doesn't. He was my roommate. But if everyone else has any questions about what's happening at PaizoCon, post them there. We'll add them to the conversation. We're going to start mostly with the news, but then we're going to get into the bantery stuff about, the highlights of the convention. So starting with the news, we like to think that we're a very broad-focused podcast related to all things Pathfinder, but when it comes down to it, this podcast was started by the RPG, and that's where I'd like to start. RPG got a new hardcover announced, and that would be Pathfinder Unchained, which is scheduled for a spring 2015 release. Param, this is probably the one you know the most about, probably just from reading on forums and whatnot. So what do you think is Pathfinder Unchained?
In my opinion, everything I've seen about Pathfinder Unchained, this looks like it's going to be Pathfinder's take on the Unearthed Arcana books traditionally released for Dungeons & Dragons all the way back to 1st edition, basically full of all kinds of alternate rules and styles of playing the game and rehashes of some of the content. They also seem to be focusing all of attention on the fact that this book is going to be how they would have written Pathfinder if they both wrote it today and didn't have to care about the traditions of the game that they worried about when they were first releasing it, to making sure that it was backwards compatible with 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons.
Indeed, and Unearthed Arcana is a very fair comparison because when Jason Bowman was asked that directly, while he couldn't say, yes, this is Pathfinder's Unearthed Arcana for various legal reasons, he did say, that's a fair comparison for you to make.
Oh, okay. Well, we will make it again and again and again.
In case anyone's getting confused, Pathfinder Unchanged does kind of serve multiple masters because it's changing some rules that are only there because Pathfinder need to be reverse compatible, like you said, Param. It's adding some new rules based on their 8 years experience with the game. It's improving some classes. This has confused some people. So we've got 4 classes that are being covered: the Barbarian, the Summoner, the Rogue, and the Monk. These aren't going to be alternate classes in the sense of like a rogue or a ninja. These are going to be complete rebuilds, optional rebuilds, I suppose, of those 4 classes for various reasons. 3 of the 4 of them you can tell just from what's been said on the forums. People are constantly complaining the rogue is not powerful enough of a class. That was often the complaint about the monk. The monk's improved since Ultimate Combat and all the style feats came out. But Jason Bowman did specifically say one thing about the monk. This version of the monk will have a full base attack bonus.
Which, good, because I think it always should have had. Like, I don't understand why the monk never had it, because he's already at a disadvantage because he's not using sharp, pointy objects.
And he needs his high strength and his high dex because he's not wearing armor, and like every +1 helps for the monk.
Exactly.
We also know the summoner. People often complain about the power level of the summoner, or specifically the power level of the Eidolon, and the time a summoner's turn tends to take.
Oh goodness, I don't have a summoner in my group. I have a conjurer in my group, and it's almost as bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, the summoner has become one of the go-to classes for NPC villains because it's one of the classes that a GM knows this can handle an entire party of people.
Yeah, it's a pure caster that's not super squishy.
And comes with a built-in bodyguard.
Oh, yes.
The Barbarian is the one I think surprises some people. Param, I know when we were chatting, you said that's the one you weren't expecting.
Yeah, I was not expecting because I don't see a whole lot of, well, the Barbarian's not powerful enough, or I don't understand the Barbarian. The Barbarian is a really simple class with a simple purpose. Go raw and smash things with large, heavy objects. And it succeeds. I've got a Barbarian in my group right now. Well, actually, he's a Blood Rager, but he's mostly a Barbarian. And even when he was last campaign, when it was just normal Barbarian, massively successful at dealing hit point damage to monsters.
Well, one of the questions that's come up and we don't have an answer for is how these new versions of the class are going to interact with archetypes. We don't know. Hopefully that's something we're going to find out in the future. There's a very good chance these 4 new versions of the classes will be the playtest, like the playtest content for Pathfinder Unchained, because most of the other stuff doesn't particularly need to be playtested because it's supposed to be just Pathfinder designers gone wild.
Well, that makes for a very different Twitter feed, but we can. I still think that some of the stuff might need to be playtested, though I think you're right. Depending on like this weird action economy thing that they mentioned in one of the posts sounds interesting. 1 second.
Yeah, it says there is a new system for resolving player actions designed to speed play and dispel confusion. Now, last year I played in Sean K. Reynolds' experimental game, and that was all about replacing the standard and move actions with just action points. And that was an interesting, that was a very interesting variation of the Pathfinder rules, and it could be what we're seeing here. But the way it's phrased here, to speed play and dispel confusion, I wouldn't say it did either of those things, especially speed play, because when you have 9 points worth of actions, you want to get every single action you can. And so once you move into a location, you've done everything you planned on doing that turn, and then you've got 1 or 2 action points left over, then you just sit there and consider all the actions you can also throw in there.
Yeah, this is the same reason that the alternate magic system from Ultimate Magic, let's try to say that 5 times fast, slows play down because you're constantly considering your options. And so I think a point-based system would be fun for the action economy. And one of my favorite all-time classic computer games. Exile Escape from the Exile series, Exile 3 Escape from the Pit specifically, uses a system exactly like that to play, and it is extremely fun. In that game, depending on how fast you are, you have a number of action points, and each action takes a certain amount of points. Casting a spell is 5, hitting somebody with a sword is 2, and so on and so on. And that sounds cool, but that's going to slow things down. That's not going to simplify it.
We have a point from Falcon Lars in chat. He says there's no playtest for this one. This is something that Jason Bullman said in the thread.
No playtest.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. It's going to be weird having a major hardcover release without a playtest.
Yeah, well, even then, no new classes without a playtest.
Yeah.
I love Pathfinder, and I think they do a darn good job of their design work. But we complain about the Summoner now. That bugger was darn broke when his playtest form, and several of the advanced classes were broken too. Playtesting, it gets results.
Yeah. Oh well, that's their choice, and I mean, if there's one impression I got from hanging out with the Paizo staff, it's just how overworked everyone feels. And while the playtest will alleviate some amount of pressure from them because someone else is doing the playtesting, that's a lot more fun than looking through playtest results, looking through comments that maybe are a little snarkier than they should and maybe take a little longer than they should to get to their point. Maybe actually giving them a break from playtest for one hardcover book will actually make the book a little bit better and lower their stress level.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, I get what you say. They are overworked. They've got the largest staff right now of any role-playing game professional development team, and even then, they're just pushing out so much product. It's ridiculous. I feel bad every time we send an email to them saying, "Hey, can you come interview with us? Can you make time out of your super busy schedule getting this stuff ready for the cons to talk with us for a couple of hours about nonsense?"
In any case, I am looking forward to Pathfinder Unchained. I expect it to be a lot like Ultimate Campaign in format, so it'll just be a lot of Fast and Furious chapters, 4 to 8 pages, and what I'm most looking forward to are the weirdest ones, the ones that aren't even on the list yet, because there's definitely not 256 pages of content described there. There's less than half the book, I think, already described. So I'm looking forward to opening it up and it being like, if you want your entire party to be dragons, here's how. Just stuff that's completely outside the norm for Pathfinder.
Yeah, they really should go crazy on this one. You're right. I mean, this is also probably going to be the single biggest book with the least material legal in PFS play.
If anything ends up legal, I would expect it to be the classes.
Yeah. Well, they also said every class is going to get not just these classes, but all, quote-unquote, 30 other classes would also get one. But aren't there 32?
Depends on how you count. There are anywhere between 29 and 32 classes. And actually, since we're getting to the advanced class guide, we can talk about that too. So the Advanced Class Guide seminar gave us a little more detail about how the book is going to be formatted. Every class is going to get the necessary number of pages, so there's not going to be a set number of pages per class. But after that, there's going to be a set number of pages for options for the class. So it's 4 pages of options and archetypes. So something like a bard's masterpieces or an inquisitor's inquisitions, those would fall under options. And then after the options are handled, we'll get 2 or 3, maybe 4 archetypes. Then we know that each of the game's existing classes will get 1 page of options and archetypes. The thing is, Jason Bullman said that each of the 30 classes will get 1 page of options. If you don't count alternate classes, there are 29 classes after the Advanced Class Guide comes out. If you count the Samurai, the Ninja, and the Anti-Paladin as separate base classes, not just alternate classes or major archetypes, then we've got 32. So even if you discount the Anti-Paladin, which is kind of more of a GM's version of the Paladin, at least in most campaigns, that still leaves us with 31. We never quite hit that sweet spot of the 30. So we know we can expect all the core rulebook classes, all the advanced player's guide classes, except maybe the anti-paladin. We can expect the magus, the gunslinger. It's really the ninja, the samurai, and the anti-paladin are kind of in flux. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, and you're right. Those three classes are the least supported classes of all the classes. We talk about how Pathfinder doesn't abandon its extra classes. The ninja and the anti-paladin seem pretty darn abandoned to me.
Matthew Calder says, "Wait, your whole party isn't dragons? You're doing it wrong."
Oh.
That's funny. I have no clever retort, unfortunately.
No, none at all.
So beyond that, as far as the advanced class guide, we got to see some new art, but that's about it. And he reiterated once again, Jason Mullman did, that the class design section will not be like the advanced race guides race design section. It's not going to be actual tools for designing your own class with class points and whatnot. It's going to be more like the spell design guide in Ultimate Magic, which is just advice, pointers, things you might not realize, ways that you can balance out your own classes.
But the spell design guide in Ultimate Magic was super useful.
I concur. There were things I'd never realized about spells and why certain spells were certain levels until I read that, and I felt just better informed after having read that chapter.
Now, what are your thoughts? Just like some predicting for our advanced class guide. What are your thoughts on how these guys are going to, since they're not using the hybrid language anymore?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they're going to interact with their parent classes now? Because some of this stuff might be pretty necessary for them to function.
Stephen Rodney McFarlane specifically said in the RPG seminar that they're not hybrid classes in rules anymore, just in like concept, and so you can multi-class with their component classes, and there are options to support multi-classing with their component classes. So similar to how the Magus has a Magus Arcana, that if you are multi-classing with a wizard, you can apply your Magus stuff to some of your wizard spells. Like you can do spell combat with your wizard thing, but you have to take the Magus Arcana. So we're going to get some options like that for various advanced class guide classes. We also know from what Stephen Radney McFarlane said, the freelancers that worked on it, they were given carte blanche to do whatever design work they could come up with, and then Paizo would kind of parse out the best of it. The freelancers loved the swashbuckler. They made so much swashbuckling equipment. It made up like, I don't know, he didn't give a number, so I'm just going to make up 95% of all freelancer content with swashbuckler equipment, like jaunty hats.
Well, you've got to have jaunty hats.
But also in that design seminar, Stephen Radney McFarlane paid particular attention explaining the Inquisitor, not the Inquisitor, the Investigator, his design philosophy for it. So I think that's one of the ones that we're going to see get a little more love than some of the other classes. It just feels like they needed 10 classes, and they really, really liked many of them. But some of them were more like, this is a cool concept, we all agree, yes, move on.
But why did they need 10? That seems like a really arbitrary number.
It would have been nice if it was 11, so we actually had 30 classes.
Yeah.
I guess 10 was just based on page count, the average page count a class takes, the average size of a hardcover book. They could comfortably fit in 10 new classes, support 10 new classes, give them the equipment they need. That's my only speculation. They never said exactly why they chose 10, only that 10 was the number and 10 is what they settled on.
I wasn't going to be super surprised if after like the playtesting round and discussion they decided things like, now I'm just picking one at random, but like the Scald. Well, the Scald doesn't really work. There's now 9 classes.
Random, Param.
Okay, he's the first one I came up with that is kind of pointless.
We do know
the War Priest. The War Priest is super hard to balance.
The War Priest got a lot of attention. That's something they also said in the RPG design seminar. The War Priest got a lot of attention because every round of the playtest, they made a major change to its base function, and they saw it swung from underpowered in the first round. Basically, if it was less powerful than a cleric fighter multiclass, something was wrong. But then the second round, when it got a full base attack bonus with its God's favored weapon, that made it way too powerful, because then when you combine it with cleric buff spells, suddenly it's the heaviest hitter in the entire game, and that was again not the concept of the class. So they've come up with some new partial solution. I don't remember what it was. Actually, I'm not even sure if they went into full details on it, only that they made some kind of compromise between full base and being a 3/4 base.
Yeah. The problem with that, in my opinion, is that the cleric is already so close to being a war priest on its own that I don't see that the war priest is super necessary as a cleric fighter, because the cleric is 3/4 base attack bonus full fighter, but it is trivially easy to make a cleric that is a combat powerhouse.
By the way, Anthony Lee is playing a Skald in Pathfinder Society. He's pointing this out in chat. And from what he told me, he chose the Skald specifically because when we were talking about the Advanced Class Guide classes, that was the one we said we didn't like.
Yeah, that is true.
One of the reasons I know that they didn't cut out any of the classes is because when we spoke with Jason Mullman, which was last January? This January? Anyway, it was a while ago. It was before the playtest was done, and he was already talking about how the art orders had been sent out. And once art's been commissioned, you were not cutting that content.
True. That's true. Speaking of art, did you finally get to see all of them and know who they are?
We got to see a higher resolution picture. I still don't think we know exactly everybody, but at this point we've seen more than half of them previewed on the blog. Between the blog and Mummies... No, not Mummies something. The Free RPG Day scenario.
Okay.
Whatever it was called. Something from the Sand? We'll call it Something from the Sand. We're slowly getting to know who's who. The very Aztec one is the Arcanist, which I didn't realize. That when we were all making our guesses of who's who, that I don't think anyone guessed that one would be the Arcanist. The Aztec-looking halfling. Or gnome.
Oh, no, we guessed the halfling was the Arcanist on the show, Ryan.
Did we? I don't know anything. We'll talk about things I don't pay attention to in my own show when we get to the Arcanist,
because none of the others matched. Yeah, but it was really weird to see that she's... Well, this is not new news. This is a couple of days old news, but the fact that she's a Resmiri is an iconic Resmiri is kind of neat.
That is pretty cool. Oh, Matthew Calder with the save, Risen from the Sands. I was a lot closer than I thought I was with my Something from the Sands. Risen from the Sands was the Free RPG Day module. We were just talking about art. We got to see an NPC Codex preview, but really it was just art. And if you're going to watch our seminar, our video of the banquet, then you're going to get to see a lot of the art. There's a lot of really cool and interesting design. The Fire Giant King and Queen were my favorite, particularly the King, because he's a Fire Giant in gold dragon armor. And just the gold versus the like bright red beard, it's such a just such a powerful combination of colors. It jumps right out at the page with you, and they did a really good picture of it. And it really looks like the book is just going to have tons of art in it. So if it hasn't already been announced, I think we can expect soon after the Monster Codex comes out, Monster Codex Pawns.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's got to be why this one's going to be so art-heavy, too, because they need to do that set. And it's going to be a full box, just like in PC Codex Pawns. And, which I have all my pawns out, which we'll talk about in the banter segment. I guess the reason that we're only getting art on this one is that there's really no mystery left to this book. There was no mystery left to this book as soon as they announced it. It was like, oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome. But moving on. I mean, it's going to be... Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's going to be one of the things on my wish list for years. Didn't imagine it in a hardcover setting like this, but there was like the Lazy... Do you remember the Lazy DM series for 3.5 open content?
For sure.
Which was basically this kind of same idea. So it's not a super new idea, but for those of you who don't know, the Lazy DM series, I think they eventually did do a conversion of it to Pathfinder, but I don't know the quality of it. I never reviewed it. Was they would take a monstrous race like Lizardman, Orc, or Cobalt, and then make 20 levels of them, like the NPC Codex did with the standard classes. And for the same reason you'd want them, because building up your Orc tribe takes time that you don't want to spend.
Speaking of orcs and art, a couple of the monsters seemed a little off-model, so I have to assume that this is going to be the new standard look for that race, but the orcs, the two orcs that were previewed, very pretty. They look like they could have been half orcs. Yeah, or like half orc, half elves. Like they were very smooth-skinned, soft-jawed, soft-featured. It was pretty surprising that they went that direction with orcs, who are just traditionally the, I don't know, hit it with whatever you've got on hand, brutal savages.
Well, I mean, if you read Orcs of Galarian, they pretty much define the orcs as these, like, really bestial, grunty, green skin, black skin, gray skin, brown skin, turquoise polka dotted skin, red. It didn't really matter what color the skin was. They were all these, like, giant, bestial things with humongous jaws, and you get it. They looked scary. And these guys, they don't look scary at all. They just look like, well, like you said, green elves.
I know that that James Sutter has always been a proponent for avoiding races that are just purely evil, like almost supernaturally evil. You've got the goblins, and goblins really make up the chaotic evil by default race. But for some reason, he really wants to explore the idea that orcs really can be more than just the savages, that it's possibly just they're a little earlier in like some kind of social evolution. So maybe this was some pressure from within to change how orcs are portrayed, or maybe it's we've got 5th edition coming out right away, and maybe they want to separate themselves more from Dungeons and Dragons orcs.
Now this is interesting because that is a complete about-face from their stated goals back around the time Orcs of Galarian and some of those books were coming out, because they said that at that time, I think this may have been Sean K. Reynolds, this may have been James Jacobs, I'm not sure who these quotes are from because they're from years and years ago, but that they didn't want to see, they didn't want to make them super cliche, but they wanted the evil races to be evil and to have less of these, well, maybe they're not really evil exceptions that were plaguing the later half of 3.5 and its products. I mean, the vampires especially, they want them to be horrific murder monsters, not, you know, Anne Rice romance plots.
It could be then that because Pathfinder has done virtually nothing with orcs, like I can only think of one Pathfinder Society scenario where I even encountered orcs. Maybe they just really want to say, like, this is something we've never done with, so even with that previous stated goal, now's the time. Now's the time we can explore orcs and see what makes Pathfinder orcs different from all other fantasy orcs.
Well, I support the idea because they did a great number on goblins, and orcs were still just orcs. You can think of ogres they completely made awesome, and then orcs stayed orcs.
Meanwhile, hobgoblins kind of regressed. They became the medium-sized goblins, but without the personality. Whereas
they became the frickin' serial killers.
What?
Yeah, haven't you read the Monsters? Oh, sorry. You're right. Hobgoblins, not bugbears.
Yeah. Hobgoblins were just medium-sized, bluer goblins. But in Monster Codex, it's actually funny, we're getting more of the 3.5 version of the hobgoblin, which was more of the militarized, lawful evil 0 HD race. They definitely, of all the 0 HD races, they've got the fanciest looking armor. They look like they're actually organized, they know what they're doing, and they're building things properly.
You're right, but they share so much of crossover there with orcs that to the point that even in my miniature case, I just throw them all together because they seem to be half interchangeable.
Brite Beerloaf is saying we should bring back pig-faced orcs.
Pig-faced orcs would be cool, but they kind of swung and missed on that one a while back. Now, if they bring back orcs, and orcs and dwarves are the mortal enemies of each other in Pathfinder, and dwarves, except for, I was about to say except for Pathfinder Society, but not even there. I mean, they sort of exist as the MacGuffin in this season's Pathfinder Society, but we've done nearly nothing with them.
We had the not Destiny of the what was it called? The three-parter towards the end of season 4. The Secret Stones Keep, or was that one of the? That was one of the adventures in a three-parter that was very dwarf-focused, and like you said, I mean, I've been playing a dwarf for most of season 5, and because Jormungandr often comes up, and Jormungandr is a Sky Citadel, which is a dwarf thing, I have felt like, yeah, this, I really get to feel like a dwarf. I really feel like this, my race choice is playing into it more than just the ability bonuses I got for it. But we were talking about orcs, and let's talk about the adventure path. Let's move on to the adventure path that was announced, which is the one that's coming out after Iron Gods. It's called Giant Slayer.
Haven't we done this already?
Yes! Right? Like, okay, when we were predicting what the next AP would be, you and I said it would be a return to classic fantasy.
Yes, absolutely.
And there are classic, you know, some of the old Red Box and First Edition Dungeons & Dragons adventures was against the Giants.
Right. Or Against the Stone Giants is a direct remake of that for Pathfinder. Or not remake, but ridiculously inspired.
At least 4 of the Rise of the Runelords adventure paths, and Rise of the Runelords being the most in-your-face, the most iconic, the most promoted of the adventure paths, at least 4 of them are about taking on giants. Not just featuring giants, but about fighting giants.
Yeah.
Including stone giants, and in the preview picture, one of the 3 giants we saw was a stone giant.
Yep. My Ranger in my Rise of the Runelord group took focus enemy, favorite enemy giants early on, and I hated it by the end because it was every fight almost. I mean, you're right. From book 3 onwards, it's all giants, all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I like giants. I like slaying giants. But when I was thinking of a return to fantasy, I was thinking orcs. I was thinking this would be the orc adventure path. And then the Guide to the Holds of Belkzen was announced to be coming out shortly or around the same time as the new AP, so it even felt like, oh, definitely. They're definitely orcs. They're finally pulling the orc trigger. That's great. It's going to be the exact opposite of Iron Gods. It's going to be just, here's some orcs, kill some orcs, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And instead we're killing giants, which is great, but if I feel like killing giants, I'm going to run Rise of the Runelords.
Yeah. But Rise of the Runelords doesn't sound like it's giants right away. I mean, Rise of the Runelords sounds like it's all ancient mysticky stuff. You're expecting an evil caster BBEG. You're expecting lots of ancient explory stuff. And then you get into it, and the most iconic monster in the adventure is a bunch of goblins. And you don't expect going into it that this is the giant adventure path, but it pretty much is. But I mean, I still have faith in them to do it right, but it just seems weird because, like, we've done this before. Does this mean we're going to be revisiting other concepts again? I mean, are we going to have another Arabian Nights themed adventure path again? Because that would be cool. Legacy of Fire is one of my favorite reads through of an adventure path, and it's 3.5, not Pathfinder.
I don't think we have to worry about them just constantly running out of ideas and retreading old ideas. And I'm sure they're going to do a fine job with Giant Slayer. I just have a harder time getting super excited about it because it seems so familiar.
Well, did they give any clue about it besides the fact that this is its name and here's some art?
Only that that's not the finished logo. They just used Slayer, the band's logo, and put the word giant on top of it.
Okay, so first we have Dio as a halfling, now we've got Slayer and the Giants. I'm noticing a pattern here.
By the way, Lady Ophelia in chat filled me in. It's Quest for the Sky. That's the Dwarf trilogy from Season 4. Halls of Dwarven Lore, The Price of Friendship, and The Secrets Stones Keep.
Which is the most dwarves have been focused in the entirety of Pathfinder, is that trilogy.
It is true because
And that
James
is a
Jacobs is
sad thing.
anti-dwarf prejudice, but Rob McCreary is really pro-dwarves. I wonder if Giant Slayer will be a dwarf-heavy adventure.
That would be
Adventure
cool.
path. That would
That
separate
would
it
be
from Rise of the
super
Rune
cool.
Lords.
Yeah, especially if it was like a siege campaign.
Yeah, but you know what we're doing? We're speculating. And the reason that I'm more disappointed in Giant Slayer is that it's not the things we were speculating it could be.
Oh. This is true. Well, it did, but at least it's a classic fantasy one. We were right on that. And Against the Giants, it was a trilogy, not just a single volume. So there's plenty of inspiration to pull from. And it'd be kind of neat if the Giants are calling their own shots this time instead of being basically enslaved by random BBEG we won't spoil. Which is becoming less and less necessary the more we talk about it.
Oh, we've got information coming from chat. Anthony Lee was in the Adventure Path seminar, which I haven't listened to yet. Says that they'd mentioned you'd be dealing with orcs in the first few parts of Giant Slayer. Orcs are tricky to run an entire AP around because you run into the wealthy NPC problem at high levels.
This is true.
Okay.
That's the reason Drow became such a problem in the Second Darkness.
So it seems like the orcs are going to be the mooks to the giants, playing a similar role to what the goblins play in Rise of the Rune Lords. But because goblins and orcs can be played so differently, like goblins can be fun, violent, but orcs can just be violent, and it can get dirty and ugly really quickly. So I can see the tone of this adventure path. Like it will start with a very different tone.
Mm-hmm. And orcs and giants do like to team up historically.
It's true. They've got a history of it.
And
so
they both hate dwarves.
Right?
Okay, this could be leading good places,
And this is the Rob McCreary adventure path. Like, every year, James Jacobs does one, Rob McCreary leads the other. Rob McCreary is leading this one. So, all right. Speculation on dwarfs having a major part in Giant Slayer continues. The two other giants that were in the preview art were the Tega Giant, which is kind of like the less awesome version of the Rune Giant, and Frost Giants. So yeah, of the three that we got previewed, two of them are Rune Lords.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm hoping for a Storm Giant. A Storm Giant is a good boss monster. Like, so book 5, book 6, I really want it to be one of the magic dealing, intelligent, supernatural giants.
And I don't want ogres.
Yeah, we're done with ogres. We're done with hill giants.
I don't want trolls. I don't want trolls either.
Well, not as a central focus.
Right. I mean, I know they're a giant type, but they don't. I want to see hill giants. I want to see stone giants. I want to see the fire giants. That's what I want to see.
That's true. We've got such awesome new art for the fire giants.
Well, and plus, think of all the scenery you can have with the fire giants, man. You can be fighting over a freaking stone bridge over volcano lava.
Go on, yeah. This is sounding pretty awesome.
Yep.
Anthony, since you were in the AP seminar, can you just post in chat, did they reveal who the authors are going to be? Because the only one I know potentially is Sean K. Reynolds based on a tweet that he will be possibly writing one of the adventures. So, while Anthony does that, any other thoughts on Giant Slayer?
I hope that the support material that comes out with this has support for reasons you would want to climb up on stuff to then fight giants. Because right now you technically can fight giants by hacking at their shin bones. I want my reason for my players to like climb up on the furniture and jump off at them.
Yeah, that would be very cool if one of the sections of Pathfinder Unchained was just about adding 3D elements to your terrain and adjudicating that. That would be cool if people are on a lot more levels.
And thinking of that, I want to see, like, towards the end of this, I want to see some freaking colossi. like you have to go full on video gaming with this one. You have to climb on this bugger to fight him.
Drop him in a pit. Just start shooting holes at him. Yeah, those pit spells are going to ruin any giant encounter.
My players haven't discovered the pit spells. Don't tell them
Oh,
about them.
my players have, and I've told them I don't use them if you don't use them. Yeah, it's a nuclear standoff. Anthony Lee has the authors. He's just going to get his notes. Thanks, Anthony. So while we do that, we will take a step back. This is something that I didn't mention earlier when we were talking about the RPG, but we do know a little bit more information about the strategy guide. The strategy guide was supposed to be out already. It was supposed to be the spring release, and it's been delayed. It was delayed multiple times. It's been delayed to, I believe, October is the most recent date that it's been moved to. So that's like its third release date at least. And there's been Paizo hasn't been particularly transparent with this, but we did know that it was basically a two-author show. It was John Compton, who's a Paizo employee, and they have full access to him. And there's Wolfgang Bauer, who is completely professional. So I don't think any speculation that it's based on authors not turning things in on time. I don't think that was the problem. And in fact, Jason Bullman says that it was delayed for various reasons, but he did call out one specific reason, that it's harder to lay out a strategy guide than he anticipated. And if we think about the beginner box,
the beginner box was delayed.
The beginner box was delayed, and it was so like graphic heavy, and the layout added to the experience. It made it a lot clearer, a lot easier to follow. And so, if they want to do the same thing but a 300-page book featuring new content, I can imagine that being much longer, at least 3 times as long as laying out your average adventure, your average hardcover, which by now I would imagine the layout artist can do practically rote.
Then I keep thinking maybe they need to, like, borrow somebody from Brady Games to come in here, because that's what they do.
I don't know who Brady Games is.
Brady Games is the company that makes the strategy guides for video games, and they're like super laid out, easy to follow, a lot like the beginner's box layouts were. Like, this is what they do.
Cool. Lady Ophelia has mentioned in chat, Giant Slayer equals Mythic Giants. Boy, I really wish I'd listened to that Adventure Path seminar. So is this speculation, Venus, or is this something that we know concretely?
Yeah, that would be important. I like Mythic now. Like, my players are Mythic, and it is fun. But I'm getting book fatigue. It's getting worse.
Like physically carrying book fatigue?
No, that's fine. Getting them there is fine, but having to use every single hard book published for one adventure is like, the kingdom building rules have now come into play.
Really?
The downtime rules are in full effect. The army rules are in full effect. I'm having to track all that jazz. I had to take a break. Basically, last session was a little bit of roleplay, and then me talking for an hour trying to teach them how how the mass combat rules work, and then running a mass combat just to show them how it works. And then I know it's going to get worse because it hasn't introduced multiple armies on them yet. And it makes for an epic scope for the adventure. They're leading armies against the armies of the Abyss, and it's cool, and they feel completely kick butt. But the work behind the table is exhausting.
Ideally, it'll just be a boss fight will include a mythic version of that giant, and most of the work will be done for you. It'll be on the page, and maybe you'll just have to reference some of the mythic rules. But mythic monsters are a lot easier to run than versus mythic players.
Yeah. The mythic isn't the part that's making that exhausting. Please reference Ultimate Campaign parts A through Z, the dueling rules parts A and B, everything. I don't know. I don't mean to bash it, but yeah, that's definitely something I hope that we never see again. I think I want to use my new books, but pick 3, Paizo. Pick 3 books that I'm going to be using.
I know that John Compton has made a rule that you don't do more than, I think 3 might be the number of when you're designing a Pathfinder Society scenario. And that's why usually if you'll see 1 monster from Bestiary 3, you'll see 3 monsters from Bestiary 3 and nothing from 2 or 4.
Is the NPC Codex a gimme then?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it shows up.
Well, yeah. Ever since they introduced the NPC Codex, it's been used in every society adventure I've run.
Wow. Okay, I've noticed it in a couple. But it's usually that's for when they don't necessarily have a combat planned, but in case one breaks out, NPC Codex.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, it's like this is the main encounter, but he's got 3 thugs with him. For thugs, please use brigand at page blah blah blah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Antonelli is back. Book 1 for the Giant Slayer will be Battle of Bloodmarch Hill, and it'll be Patrick Rennie, who is an in-house developer at Paizo, but I don't think has written any of the Adventure Path installments before, so that'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got Hill Giants Pledge by Larry Wilhelm. So, wait, were Hill Giants in Rise of the Rune Lords? Or it was just Ogres, wasn't it? No, Book 3 is Hill Giants, isn't it?
No.
The Wolfgang Bauer book, I thought, was Hill Giants.
No.
No?
There are Stone Giants. It's Book 3 is Ogres, Book 4 is Stone Giants, Book 5 is Super Dungeon, and Book 6 is Everything Under the Sun.
Okay, well, Larry Wilhelm, I've run some of his Pathfinder Society scenarios, so I know he's got a good pedigree. We've got Forge of the Giant God by Tim Hitchcock. That, when I hear Forge, what giant do you think of, Param?
Fire Giants.
I'm thinking Fire Giants too, and it's Tim Hitchcock, who is just kind of an adventure writing genius.
Yes, I love his work.
Iced Home of the Giant Queen, Frost Giants. This is by Jim Groves. Jim Groves has been doing more and more of the Adventure Path installments, and I met him at PaizoCon, and he is a great dude. Oh, wait a second. Then we've got Anvil of Fire by Sean K. Reynolds. Well, that's definitely feeling more like the Fire one. So Forge of the Giant God, maybe the Tega Giant installment.
No, Tegas are super strong compared to the others.
Interesting. And then finally, we've got Shadow of the Storm Tyrant by Tito Liatti. Although Anthony Lee believes he may have made a spelling mistake with Tito's last name. I'm not familiar. That's the only of the adventure writers I'm not familiar with. But Shadow of the Storm Tyrant sounds like my call for wanting a Storm Giant may come true.
Yep. I have to imagine the one we thought originally, that must be Stone Giants then, so that it goes Hill, Stone, Frost, Fire, Storm.
Yeah, I
and
guess
that's the
so.
progression of CRs.
Unless the pictures were just 3 random giants.
Right.
That was it. We didn't really get any new announcements for the Pathfinder campaign setting line or the player companion line. The only thing that's set in Glarian that we know about was the Adventure Path line. But we do know a lot of stuff set in the real world. A lot of the licensing stuff, we had some interesting news. Okay. First up, Pathfinder Minimates.
Cool.
Param, do you know how long I've been waiting for Pathfinder Minimates?
2 years.
2 years is when they were originally announced as a concept.
Well, they were never announced.
They were of at conventions.
Yes.
We've known about them for 2 years, one way or another. And not from any awesome inside source that we have. It's pretty just anyone could have known that Pathfinder Minimates were coming.
Yep. And they sort of disappeared. I thought they were canceled because lots of stuff gets canceled. I imagine there's more stuff that has been canceled than has come out. Like we know that people have pitched Pathfinder the movie several times.
How's that going?
I don't think anybody's ever gotten a yes.
Well, we're getting the 4-pack of the 4 characters that were originally announced, which is a Goblin, Valeros, Harsk, and Maristiel. They're all going to be the same buck. So even though Harsk is a short medium and Goblins are supposed to be small, all 4 of the characters are going to be the same size. So bummer for verisimilitude, but the added advantage that now we could put the Goblin's head on Valeros's body.
Cool.
Or Batman's mask on the Goblin's head.
I don't want Bat Goblin.
Well, mini-mates are completely compatible all across the line, and so if you have any of the Marvel or DC or any of the movie lines that mini-mates have licensed over the years, you will be able to mash them up with your Pathfinder mini-mates and have a wonderful time. The ones
And
you
this,
won't be mashing them up with are the 12 exclusive and really exclusive mini-mates that will be available all over Gen Con.
and Paizo hates me. This is a cool idea, but good grief, 12 hard to get ones. Some of them in the treasure chest. I mean, I imagine you're going to have to do demos to get some of them. They said that partner booths are going to have some of them. Oh man, you could spend all of Gen Con chasing these things and still not even get a complete collection.
Yeah, Concrud specifically is the one that's going to be in the treasure chest, and for anyone that's ever gotten a Pathfinder Society or has ever gotten tokens from Pathfinder Society, you then go to the treasure chest, you hand in 2 tokens, you get 1 roll. If it's a critical threat, which is a natural 20 or it might be a 19 to 20, I think I've even seen 18 to 20 at some point. But then you've got to roll and confirm it with a natural 20. Then you get to pick from the treasure chest. And usually it's just regularly available products that are in the treasure chest. It's just, maybe the new hardcovers in there that now you don't have to buy it because you just happen to win it by rolling 2 incredibly hard to roll numbers. Making Concrud exclusive to the treasure chest, the odds are baffling. Either they're going to make very few Concruds, or they're going to make rolling a lot easier, or they're going to end up with a lot of Concrud.
Yeah. Now, just to give you the numbers, if you play, there are a total of 10 possible tokens you can earn at Gen Con. And if you play all 10 of them, which means you didn't get the other mini-mates because you didn't have time to even look at the show floor, and then use all of them on the chest rolls, you have a 1 in 40 chance of picking from that chest.
So, Param, what you're not doing is gaming the system enough. Because Tina and I last year ran all of the 4 tables that take like 20 minutes to run, and it was just a small scenario. You get a token for that. I ran kids tables where you give out tokens a lot more quickly. There are ways of getting more than just those 10 tokens, but still.
Yeah, and
she and I came to the table and just dumped just a bucket load of tokens on there, and we got a whole bunch of boons. We've got some great boons from last year's Gen Con, but we didn't confirm a critical once.
Well, and this is assuming they don't change the rules for the chest, because they have changed the rules for the chest every year.
It's true. I want Concrud.
I got the chest twice.
Oh, nice.
Well, I have a complete collection. It was less nice. I wanted the boons.
The other 2 of the 12 exclusives that we know about, one of them is going to be a Lick-Toed Goblin, which I don't know how they're going to differentiate other than a different color scheme, and a Razmiri Priest, which I found a little shocking because that feels like it at least needs new accessories, whereas the goblins, I mean, that's 2 goblins that you can just repaint the mini. But Razmiri Priest actually needs new parts cast, and that's the most expensive part of producing in miniatures and action figures.
Yeah, well, she might just have recolored like pieces of other.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be partially recolored, but I can't picture them making the whole thing unless Diamond Select, who are the producers of Minimates, I suppose they have just a pool of generic, non-licensed accessories that they can make just some kind of a mask out of.
Yeah. Or they could just paint the mask on.
I did not consider that. I will call that a lesser option. Lesser but acceptable option to having a mask as a separate piece.
And then there was news about the Pathfinder comics. Well, yes. Less news. I don't know if it's less news, but we do know that the other 2 hardcovers are going to come out. Well, actually, we knew that Volume 2 was coming out from our interview about the comics a month or so ago. But now they have announced that they are going to be doing a hardcover of the Goblins. I'm confused why the Goblins need a hardcover.
Because some of us didn't collect the individual issues because we were hoping for it to be collected.
I meant hardcover, not a collection. There doesn't
Oh,
seem to
okay.
be a lot of issues of that, and usually spin-off books don't get hardcovers; they just get soft covers.
No, but I suppose so you can line it up with your Pathfinder RPG hardcovers.
Oh yeah, because they print them in the weird full-size format, which is weird. Because comic books pages are not full-size pages. Weird stuff. Weird, make my collection weird. But I'm glad they're coming out. Mainly because I hate thumbing through my originals. Because then you get fingerprints on the corners.
And I mean, I lick my thumb before I turn the page, so I get thumbprints and tongue prints. Sometimes I'm like eating a taco while reading my comics, and I like my tacos just full of sour cream.
I'm the guy that screams at the Pawn Stars TV show when they don't put gloves on before handling a valuable one.
Yeah. Next up, what were we talking about? Sirenscape.
Sirenscape!
We had them on the show a couple of months ago. They were implying that they were working on something with Paizo, but they couldn't announce what. Now they've announced it. It is a Rise of the Rune Lords soundtrack. Parts 1 and 2 are already out. Parts 3 through 6 are soon to be available. They are not on the Paizo store yet, and that's the reason that it's been delayed, because these products have actually been ready for a while. But Ben hasn't been able to release them because he's been waiting for the Paizo store to set up a whole new section for the downloads of the MP3s, and eventually he convinced Paizo to just let him release it on his store. It's going to be it was a soft release. It wasn't a big flashy like look they're available now release. It was a soft release so people can buy them. People like me who are running Rise of the Rune Lords very shortly will get to do it with a whole soundtrack, and like the Swallowtail Festival will have festival sounds. The speeches will have a crowd murmur that shushes when you press the shush button. I know I'm just adding more and more things that I have to keep track of as a GM, but one of the things I'm most looking forward to now is having Rise of the Rune Lords official soundtrack.
I am jealous. Running this with the soundtrack would be. I did run it with sound, but I was using like the Midnight Syndicate stuff and some of the ones you can get on RPG Now. There's a bunch of great soundtracks you can buy on there for the cheap. But now, ever since I touched Sirenscape at Gen Con, that when it was teased, man, I just wish I had this.
And it ends up that Ben, great guy.
Yeah.
In fact, also a fan of No Direction. So we got an exclusive interview with him at PaizoCon, and
Sweet.
No Direction listeners, No Direction did. No Direction listeners can look forward to an exclusive No Direction Sirenscape free-to-download package that you'll have to listen to the interview to get the full information on. But it's going to be fun.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know. I didn't even tell you about this. Ben came up to me at PaizoCon just like day 2, and he was like, I was talking to someone, and they mentioned that you do all these silly voices and stuff for the show. And I was like, yes, and we got to talking, and now there will be a No Direction sound package available for Sirenscape. For Sirenscape.
Will it have GOAT? It must have GOAT.
I have to talk to Phil from Chimera Games to make sure they don't feel any proprietary rights over the Chimera character. But even if they do, I'm sure we can just get a GOAT. He won't give speeches, but I can do the bleat.
That's cool. I like it. Why didn't you tell me?
You know what? It slipped my mind until I saw it in the outline here.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's neat. We've never had anything close to that before.
Nope.
That's cool.
Between this and the Kickstarter sound audio that I'm recording, I'm starting to feel like I may have a career as an amateur, unpaid voice actor.
Oh, good. Especially the unpaid part.
By the way, Falcon Lars has some of Tito Liati's credits. Apparently, he wrote an installment for Shattered Star, Jade Regent, and Curse of the Crimson Throne. So these are 3 adventure paths I've never looked at too closely, so I didn't realize. But cool.
Never run any of those.
What's that?
I said I've not run any of those. Oh man! But you know, a company that I was surprised we heard about.
What's that?
Campaign Coins. I thought they went away.
Maybe they ran out of coins. Maybe people were just less interested in buying fairly expensive coins to add to the game when coins can be amassed in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands during a campaign. They were cool, like, because the campaign coins were intended to be an actual piece that you hand to your players, but ultimately it was more of a neat collectible because you just could not afford to buy that many coins. Otherwise, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I studied out what it would take to get their set to have a play set, and it was about $500 would get you enough to have a play set. Like for a standard group of 4 PCs, and that's using things like their 1,000, 5,000 coin, so that you don't have literally 5,000 coins.
That still seems really cheap to me.
Oh, that's ended up being what it costs to be able to cover like all the way up to 20th level wealth by level.
Well, what Campaign Coins is doing, they've moved away from coins, but they're staying in the minting profession. They are making us a Sihedron medallion.
Wow! That's cool. I want one and we'll never touch it.
Eric Mona showed us 2 different ones, one with a blue gem in the center, one with a red gem in the center. I don't know if that was the flip side. I don't know if those are 2 separate products or if those are 2 separate models. You know, when you do like a blueprint, a demo, mock-ups. Sure, we'll go with mock-ups. There's a different word I was looking for, though. Prototypes! Yes, thank you, Param. If those were 2 different prototypes and he decided to take pictures of the both, although he didn't poll the audience or anything, so I don't know. And while I know the Sihedron medallion as so-and-so's really cool thing from such and such, and it's one of the most iconic Magic items in the adventure path, in the campaign setting, I don't know what the significance of the blue versus the red gem are. I don't know if it's been illustrated both ways. So, nothing?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, you couldn't tell the scale from the picture. So Eric Mona said that if you're trying to picture the size of it, picture the medallion that the Nazi burned his hand on in the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, big boy.
Yeah, seriously. That's something that if you're wearing it, you're wearing bling. You're not just wearing a necklace.
To the necklace from the Neverending Story, same size.
Yep, same size, but less Nazi screaming in pain.
True enough.
Venus says she has one already. Not an officially licensed one, though, right, Venus? Yeah, I'm going to assume that you either know someone that made one or you made one yourself. Hey, Param, do you know what's huge with the Pathfinder name all over it?
The Giants... Never mind. I was going to reference the Chimera Games mascot, but he doesn't technically have a Pathfinder name all over him.
Oh, no, it's true. No, the adventure card game, Param.
Oh, yes.
This thing is gigantic. It is a huge hit for Paizo. If you listen to any board game podcast, they will talk about the Pathfinder adventure card game. If you see any of the pictures of the Paizo booths at the various trade shows, you'll see more of the card game than you'll see of the RPG. It is a huge success for Paizo. And so they've really been going forward with new releases. We already know in August at probably Gen Con, Skull and Shackles is the next set that's out.
Cool.
And they were demoing it. They were demoing that set specifically around the clock, and it plays differently from the main adventure path.
So this isn't Scooby-Doo in fantasy setting anymore?
It is. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, so the Rise of the Rune Lords is, you can picture it as the most generic one. This is the base rules, and any of the expansions will be some modification of those base rules. So in Skull and Shackles' case, the main difference is that you've got a boat. You are always on a boat, and your boat provides you, as a group, with certain advantages. And so there's sometimes you are getting off the boat and going onto land, and sometimes you're on the boat while you're moving around. Depends on how you are as a group. It's also faster to move, because if one person moves on their turn, then anyone else that's at that turn can just kind of hook onto them while they swing from ship to ship or ship to island. So everyone gets to move at the same time. So the pace of the game feels a lot faster. And there's ship-to-ship combat, and when you beat a ship, you can capture their ship. You can replace yours with the ship that you just picked up.
Neat.
Otherwise, Go ahead.
Yeah, and that definitely helps because one of the things I didn't like about the card game, well, didn't like, but kept coming up as a major stressor, is that it doesn't seem like you're a party doing things as a party when you play the adventure card game because the only winning strategies are to split up, and so you're not partying, you're completely separated from each other for most of the game. And so being on a boat and moving together, that definitely seems like that would be more close to the source material.
Now, of course, whenever you're at a location, you can try and seal the location. You can close it off.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a location that you have to sacrifice one of your ally cards to close the location. I was playing as the swashbuckler, and the only ally I had in my hand was a dolphin. So I felt really bad sacrificing my dolphin ally, poor Kiki, so that I can close this location. But hey, that's a pirate's life for me.
Oh. That reminds me, have you ever played Talisman?
I've played one game like Talisman. I don't remember if I've played Talisman.
Talisman, one of the quickest winning strategies and the most reliable, is to get the princess card and then you sacrifice the princess on the way up to finish the game. It becomes these glorious heroes going to find princesses to rescue just so they can sacrifice them and move on.
Well, at least in Skull and Shackles, you've got to expect a little skullduggery.
Yeah. Is it the iconic swashbuckler?
It is the iconic swashbuckler, Jiriel, I believe her name is. In the playtest, we had the Skull and Shackles version of Valeros, Skull and Shackles version of Lem, Lyriane, the iconic gunslinger, and Jyrel, the iconic swashbuckler. And a lot of the items in the game, the theme of the game is really prominent, or it's most prominent in the items and the things you can collect, because you're picking up cutlasses rather than long swords, and just navigational equipment. Things that you have seen on a pirate, an eye patch. Somebody in their group had an eye patch. I believe it was our gunslinger, actually. That's somebody you want to have depth perception, though.
Well, no, you squint one eye when you aim.
Mm-hmm. Between Skull and Shackles and Rise of the Rune Lords, which I've both played, I think I like Skull and Shackles more.
I can see that. It sounds like, well, if for no other reason, then this is the first time they get to learn what worked and didn't work, and it does sound like a lot of fun. I'll definitely be picking it up because they finally just this week released the final part of Rune Lords, so it's about time to get some new ones. Because we're done. But they're also going to be releasing the class decks, aren't they?
They are releasing
for organized play.
Yes. So the organized play seems really interesting. We've got Tanis O'Connor, who is a new employee. She's basically the John Compton of the adventure card game, in that she is the developer for the card game, but her specific focus is on the Pathfinder Society Adventure Card Guild. So it's interesting that it's still under the Pathfinder Society banner. It's still, Pathfinder Society is the ultimate organized play. It's just no subtitle is the RPG Pathfinder Society. Pathfinder Society Adventure Card Guild is the new organized play program specifically for the adventure card game. So we're going to start with Season 0, and they're going to iron out any of the wrinkles of organized play with that. It's going to be called Season of the Shackles, and this is they're calling it an experimental season. Weekly, they're going to release a PDF scenario. How it's going to work is that every month they release the new expansion. That month worth of PDF scenarios will use material from that expansion.
That's going to be super weird because they couldn't keep it up with a monthly release on Rune Lords.
Well, now they've got a whole team for the adventure card game, though. In fact, I believe it's a 3-person team, plus Mike Selinger, who isn't a Paizo employee, is either a consultant or just always available. So it's Vic Wirtz, Brian Campbell, and Tanis O'Connor are the 3-person adventure card game in-house designers or developers. So hopefully now that they've got a full team, they'll be able to pick up the pace.
Yep. But it's even more than picking up the pace. They're basically doing everything they did last year and quadrupling it.
Yes. So the first part will be
Legos
based on...
that they have to use this time.
What's that?
How many Legos did they have to use this time?
They used the same box.
Now, this one of the things about the organized play program. They did say the requirements are you're going to need to get your class deck and a copy of the Skull and Shackles base game. That's a big thing to be carrying around with you.
No, you don't need the Skull and Shackles is its own base game.
Right. So you're going to need that box, which is a big thing.
Yes.
And your class deck for your character.
Which fits in the box.
Yeah, will fit in the box, but that's a lot. That's a big thing to carry around for every player.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, every player just needs the class deck. So they're releasing the 7 class decks, a bard, a cleric, a fighter, a ranger, a rogue, a sorcerer, and a wizard. Within each will be 4 different characters, one of which will be based on the iconic of that class, and 3 of which will be brand new characters made just for the game or possibly taken from an adventure path. You as a character, you as a player rather, are only obliged to bring one of those characters.
Okay.
Whereas the GM is the one that will be bringing the GM, the venture officer, participating retailers will be responsible for supplying the actual Skull and Shackles base game and whatever season they're or whatever adventure within the base game they're on.
Okay. Well, this is weird because up until now it hasn't had a GM.
You're right. It's not the GM. It is the venture officer or the organizer.
Okay.
So whoever is bringing the scenario is the one that's responsible for having the base game.
Okay, so say I want to organize play for the card game at my local game store. What's involved?
You either contact your venture officer if there's a venture officer specifically dedicated to the venture card game in your area. If there's not, you contact your RPG adventure officer, and they will be your liaison trying to organize it, getting you everything that you need. But you'll also need to coordinate with your retailer because they'll be the ones that are actually getting the PDF.
A PDF?
The PDF of the scenario. So you actually need the hard copy of the adventure, which is the adventure pack.
Okay.
So
I
the
thought
deck
they
of
were
cards.
Okay, I've played a lot of the living card games and like from Fantasy Flight because those are really big in my area right now.
Okay.
And they actually make a pack that they send that's actually, this is the scenario, here's a pack of cards.
That's not what the scenario is going to be for Pathfinder Society. Pathfinder Society Adventure Card Guild.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
PDF, and at the end of the month, they will collect the 4 PDFs into a product that will be available online.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Moving on, Pathfinder Online. Ryan Dancy came up and gave us the announcement that this is happening soon.
Soon?
He said it's happening July of 2014, and when he was pointed out that it is July of 2014, he said late July 2014, but that we are going to be going from alpha to live soon. It is an alpha test right now. There are people playing Pathfinder Online, possibly as we speak.
I know this, and I've watched a lot of coverage of the alpha.
On Twitch?
On Twitch, on YouTube, because once it hit players that paid in, they started uploading to YouTube. I hate to be critical. I just don't think it's ready yet.
I see. Well, I guess we'll see. Oh, sorry, we missed something for the adventure card game.
Oh, yes.
They announced the next set.
Me.
So after Skull and Shackles will be Wrath of the Righteous, which is amazing because this is an adventure path I have no interest in actually playing or running in, but would love to play as a card game.
Interesting.
Well, Skull and Shackles I'm in, although that group seems to have dissipated, unfortunately. Rise of the Rune Lords I'll be running shortly, but Wrath of the Righteous, this is the sweet spot. This is intriguing, but not my thing. At least not for committing all the time it would take to run through an adventure path. So yes, getting to play it as an adventure card game means I get the story, I get the massiveness of it. I hopefully will be able to do some moral ambiguity that this adventure path is based around, plus the mythic card. There will be some kind of card type called mythic, which means that every now and then the whole game will go gonzo from just the insertion of superpowers.
That's going to be interesting to see how they do that in the card game. A lot, like crazy weird, actually. I mean, I guess it can be done, but that breaks my brain. I was surprised to see this because I didn't know that Wrath. You have to assume that they're picking the ones that are going to be that were popular, because they. And I'm surprised that Wrath is considered popular enough that it needs to be the next one. Like I was all but determined that it was going to be Kingmaker.
I was sure it was going to be Kingmaker as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the Pathfinder Online is taking place in the River Kingdoms,
Mm-hmm.
as is the Emerald Spire Adventure Mega Dungeon that they've just released. So there's a lot of return to the River Kingdoms interest. And they've constantly said that Kingmaker is possibly the best-selling adventure path after Rise of the Rune Lords. But nope, Wrath of the Righteous, something a little bit more current. Maybe we're looking at this backwards. Maybe the card game boosts sales for the adventure path. Nope, you don't seem convinced.
Paizo's, I don't think they have. I think they have a vested interest in getting you to want to buy the current adventure path, not the old ones.
True. And by the time Wrath of the Righteous is out, I believe we will be in the middle of Giant Slayer.
We'll be past that. Giant Slayer will. Yeah, you're right. Giant Slayer.
Yeah,
right.
Skull and Shackles is in August, 6 months, so that'll be the same time that Iron Gods releases. And so when Iron Gods ends, so too should Skull and Shackles, and therefore
so Giant Slayer will be starting, and this will be starting according to the new schedule. So it looks like they're synced since they released both in August.
Which makes sense.
Each. Yeah.
If they could release it early enough to get a little Christmas buzz, then that'll work even better for them. They'll be able to get some big splash in December and then big splash in August. But
you know what would be super, super awesome?
What's that?
If they could build up enough of a buffer to where I know this is not ever going to happen because of the production cost, but they release the AP and the card game version simultaneously.
That would be amazing and impossible.
Yeah. The art order alone would be insane.
Exactly. And if one thing gets delayed, you've just collapsed your house of dominoes.
Like I said, they would have to buffer it. They would have to basically be working. They would have to basically have a whole 2 adventure paths in the bank,
mm-hmm.
and then they're nowhere near able to get that far ahead of themselves.
No, and plus their enthusiasm would be damaged by it because they'd have to be promoting something they hadn't worked on in years.
Oh yeah, because that would be a year ago, the last time they've touched it. Yeah, never mind. Bad idea. But it would be cool.
Oh yeah. If logistics weren't a question, then yes, it would be cool.
Yeah, because then, like you know, Giant Slayer, the card game.
I would play Giant Slayer, the card game.
Yeah. I want to play Iron Gods, the card game, because that seems like a weird one.
I want to play Iron Gods, the role-playing game, but I'm positive it will never happen.
Really?
It's Kathy hates guns, let alone laser pistols.
I want to
Matt
run.
Also hates guns.
I want to run Iron Gods after.
All right. Let me know if you can find some way to squeeze me in.
Well, I've been scouting in players now.
Okay.
Not
Seems
even
extra
joking.
appropriate to use such technology for Iron Gods.
See if I can get you one of those little like segways that have an iPad attached.
Where am I going? Why do I have to be on on your end? Will I be controlling the Segway in your gaming room?
That would be cool, but that would be entirely unnecessary.
Yeah. And
but
where would I need to go?
Yeah, like I've got a couple of players. It started with just one player. When my little brother could, for medical reasons, wasn't able to make it to the games regularly for a bit, we started Skyping him in. And then one of my other players lives extra far away, so on certain nights he would otherwise miss because it's a long drive for him to come join us, he Skypes in. So, like, at this point, man, I mean, might as well start Skyping in people from Canada.
At least we're in the same time zone.
So, all right, The other big news we heard about from PaizoCon is that PaizoCon is moving
It
slightly.
is. It's moving to a 4-day weekend, and unlike July 4th weekend, this is a holiday that my country celebrates with your country, sort of. You call it
Mm-hmm.
Memorial Day, we call it Victoria Day. We're celebrating very different things, but we celebrate it on the same day, which is the third Monday in May. I don't remember exactly when it falls, but next year it falls May 22nd, which is a Friday, to May 25th, which is a Monday, will be the 4-day PaizoCon, and it will be taking place at a new venue, the Doubletree Hilton, or Doubletree by Hilton, which is just one hotel down from the Seattle SeaTac Airport Hotel, which is where the current PaizoCon has been for the last couple of years. So from the way Eric Mona described the Doubletree by Hilton, he says it's got a very 70s vibe, but a very cool 70s vibe. Everything that's good about it. It doesn't look outdated. It just looks like you're walking into this older, this cool era that's kind of gone by. And he's been to, that's actually the default venue for comic conventions in Seattle. And Eric Mona's been going to comic conventions in Seattle for years. So he says it's great for conventions, and specifically they would be tripling their seminar space, which, from what he was telling us, they were really limiting the number of seminars they had this year at PaizoCon, specifically because there just was not enough space for it. So they were turning back really cool people who had really cool things to say and had been contributing as third-party publishers or as fan projects. They had to turn them away because there was only so much room, and Paizo had a certain number of seminars that they definitely wanted to be running. So next year, it's going to be a seminar palooza, which hopefully the No Direction Con team will be there, because it was hard enough getting all of the seminars this year. But I do believe that was my goal this year. Barring there was only one that I thought we'd missed, and then one of my recorders told me that no, they had in fact sat in on that seminar, even though it wasn't on their schedule. And so I believe once I go through all of the con coverage audio that we have, that we will have one of everything. So we'll just take a second to talk about the No Direction PaizoCon coverage, because some people are already asking for it. We've put up one thing so far, and that is the video of the PaizoCon preview banquet, 2014 preview banquet. Here's the reality of the situation, though. We have multiple recordings of multiple seminars. So a lot of the seminars had 2 or sometimes 3 recorders in it, which means I've got to parse through a lot more audio. And if I've got multiple ones, I've got to determine which one's the best. And I've got more than I've done ever in the past. And unlike in the past when I was working at a school, I don't have summers off. So I'm going to be putting these seminars up during my full time, while also having 3 podcasts that we're going to be producing and publishing. And we're going to be relaunching the site, as Param and I will talk about shortly. So hopefully I'll be able to get up 5 seminars a day. I know I'll be able to get up the 2 next videos a lot easier, because I've already got the video template now, and I just have to remove certain video content, replace it with other video content. So that'll be a lot easier. So the other video content that I have is the Q&A with Jesper Eisling, which was the artist guest of honor at PaizoCon this year, and the Emerald Spire Superstars or All-Stars, whatever they were calling that seminar. I've got that one recorded as well. And everything else we've got recorded simply as audio. So we're going to get the audio for those and all of the other seminars posted as soon as we possibly can. It will either be rough or it will be slightly delayed, but my goal is to release them in the order that they happened at the con. Because sometimes there are these small subplots of things that are happening, like that door that wouldn't close for 3 or 4 seminars last year. You got to live the adventure of that door that wouldn't close if you listen to the seminars in order. And this year you get to hear Wes Schneider deciding to drop an F-bomb at just about every single seminar that he was in, so much so that we've created a new warning symbol for language content, which will include Wes's face on it.
No, wait, we're not going to edit that out?
I'm going to see what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are hidden. It's not like, okay, the diversity in gaming one, I believe Wes might have been a little drunk, because I'm going to give you the unedited audio, Param, just to appreciate how much swearing they decided to throw into the prelude to that seminar, which then trickles into the actual seminar.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Definitely toss the unedited stuff in our folder. I want to browse through these.
Yeah. You get called out. Param says that you're a great audio engineer. Well, he said you're a great bleeping audio engineer. And so that's why he had no problem swearing during the diversity in gaming seminar.
Oh gosh, darn it!
Yep. Thanks,
Ugh.
Wes.
Oh,
Thanks.
there's backstory for this one.
Oh, is there? Do you
Yeah,
want to
but
share it?
no.
Okay.
All right, so so how, was the but we also got we got the video of the banquet that's up right now, right?
Video of the banquet is up. That is the only PaizoCon content we've put up so far, but it was one day later than I expected it to be. And frankly, I landed in Montreal at 7:30 in the morning, and I was at work by 8:30, with no stop at home for a shower or anything between that. And then I got home just in time to eat before my Carrion Crown game, which I was posting updates on my Facebook page, which apparently was pretty popular. So I might do that every Monday night. But yeah, I didn't have time to edit things until last night after paintball, after I got home and the power was out, but then it came back on about 15 minutes after I got home. And then I stayed up until 3 in the morning putting together that video. So you're welcome, people. All right? You're getting your PaizoCon content.
Oh, all right, all right. What else did we want to talk about? The website?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about the website now, and then we'll talk about the just other things that happened at PaizoCon that I was interested in, or any questions you have about my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
Param, you tell me, what's the latest on the website?
Right now, the last thing to be done with the website is just to basically sort out our feeds. Here's the issue where we're facing. We can get the feeds, the new feeds, just fine. And we've separated out the feeds for all the shows. And what we're trying to get done is to recreate our master feed. Because okay, first thing, we're getting a brand new website, like we talked about in the Kickstarter. It looks pretty, it has cool features, and it puts the new content front and center in a blog style format or a Tumblr style format, where basically that way, and it lets us do things like announce things like, hey, tune in later because we're going to have a show, and not bury it in the forums where you don't see it on their front page. But part of it is the new, because we're moving over to a whole new software platform instead of our old software platform, is migrating the feeds over. So that's where I'm at with that. Getting the master feed working, and then try to find a way to save the old feed addresses so that they still work, and then to create new feed addresses so that we never have to do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really clear that we were just trying to figure things out. However many years ago we launched you guys launched the podcast, because what we're going to do is make a new static feed address that all it does is point to whatever the current feed address happens to be, so that if we ever have to do this again, we can keep the old feed address, because all it does is point to the new one instead of being the actual raw feed itself. What that may mean is that if there's no way to save the old feeds, then we'll have to basically ask everybody to resubscribe, which means we'll send out one final message on the old feed saying, hey, we're not pod faded. You need to add us again. But I'm trying to work our way around that.
We changed feeds. That I bumped into people at conventions being like, man, I missed the podcast. And I'm like, we've been doing it straight since then. You've missed about 6 months of content that's out there and waiting for you.
Well, when I've seen this done in the past, they've done that. Before they kill the feed, they send out one final message that is basically, hey, we're not pod faded. We've changed feed addresses. And that's the last thing in the feed. And it stays there. But I want to avoid that. I want to basically what I'm trying to create is a catcher and I'm having to custom code this because it doesn't exist in any package that basically catches the old feed and then forwards it to the new feed.
Cool. Also,
but
you've put up a picture previewing the new site, and it's looking hot. It's looking modern. I think people are going to like it. We got a lot of likes for that picture.
Yep. And you may notice that we're slightly rebranding with that because we're doing a more modern website redesign. We're taking the advantage to do a newer version of our logo. We love our current logo.
Yeah.
Ryan, you would say you love the current logo?
Love it more than anything in the world, Pam.
Yep. But the problem with the current logo is when you shrink it, it's hard to read.
Yeah, it just comes.
We created a new logo that is previewed on the thing, and I'm going to post it up. What we would like you guys to do, as our listeners, is give us feedback on the new logo versus the old logo. And I guess if everybody hates the new logo or everybody loves it, that'll help us know if this is the direction we should be going.
Let's talk about less news. We've gotten a lot of very just like, this is what's happening, this is really serious information that we have to give. Let's just chat now, Param. PaizoCon happened.
Yes, it did.
Wait a second. There was a bit of news that was put into the PaizoCon thought section. That was my fault for putting things in the wrong place. So one last bit of news. The Volunteers of the Year were announced. This time it was the first time that there were 2 volunteers announced, and that is because these 2 gentlemen are Dave Harrison and Rob Silk. They are England's venture captains, and they are co-venture captains. They do everything together. And before they were England's venture captains, they were Europe's venture captains. And so you can see how these people who coordinated all of a continent with a lot of countries in it, they deserve the Volunteer of the Year trophy. So congratulations to Dave Harrison, Rob Silk. I've never met these gentlemen in person. I hope to someday. And if I have, I'm sorry, guys.
I'm ridiculously impressed. Ryan, you have 2 official languages you need to worry about, and I imagine that is a full-time pain.
Oh, yes, and I parle français comme je parle dans mes yeux. I don't know. Technically, I speak French.
Okay. Europe.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Well earned, in my opinion. Well earned, guys. Okay. So, was the con ridiculously busy for you? I mean, I love our podcast and I love Gen Con, but last year I nearly burnt myself to a frazzle just making sure we got con coverage to the point that I was like, man, this Gen Con kind of sucks for me.
Yes, I have had con experiences like that, and I decided never again, which is why starting last year we started assembling the KD Con team so that we con when they can't. And I do want to give a shout out. We've got Justin Sluter, who's been giving us PaizoCon content since the very second PaizoCon, because I don't think there were seminars at the first PaizoCon. But even at PaizoCons that I haven't been able to attend, he has. So that was pretty awesome. Sluter is he's our go guy when it comes to PaizoCon coverage. But Darren Kaldemeyer helped out with a couple. Actually, wait a second. Darren Kaldemeyer said he was, but I don't know if I actually gave Darren a recorder this year. I definitely bumped into him. We chatted. Oh, well, Darren signed up, so I'm going to give him the shout out anyway. As did Anthony Lee, my roommate. Kevin, whose last name I was trying to find, and I want to say it's Kevin Murphy. I will try and find it before the end of the episode, but he did a majority of the recordings. And then I also had, I picked up Robbie Diaz in line. He told me that he was going to one of the seminars that nobody was signed up for yet. So I, in full faith in humanity, handed him one of my recorders and took down his number so I could text him for the end of the week.
Well, at least you did that second step this time.
Yeah, well.
You're not going to do this with our video equipment, are you?
No, nothing's missing. Actually, I borrowed a couple of these cool recorders from from Blind Ferret that people. There's a lot of comments in the preambles talking about how it looks like there's a taser on the table.
Let's put a taser on the table.
Keep them in line.
Well, it
So
would be
because I had such a large team and because I had so many recording devices this year, I was able to just tell. I wasn't forcing people to I wasn't guilting people saying like, oh, everyone's going to the Pathfinder RPG panel. Nobody's going to this smaller third-party panel that's happening at the same time. No, people were going everywhere. I was able to just say like, take the recorder. If you see another recorder on the table, record it anyway. It will have a redundant recording, which is fine because batteries die. Recorders get full. Sometimes somebody's super quiet, and if I have a recorder on both ends of the table, maybe I'll be able to pick up everybody equally, and I'll just have to do some editing magic. So my con team, they recorded the majority of our stuff. I attended a couple of other seminars. I attended anything with the camera. So in that regard, I did not burn myself out. I never was at more than 2 panels in a row. I also got to get some gaming in, which was great. In fact, Friday morning, first day of the con, I woke up and realized I had no commitments. So I just walked down to the mustering area. Somebody found me a table, and I played a game. And so
awesome.
I got 3 games in that weekend. Shoot, which one was that? It was definitely a Season 5. It was not 5-25, which means it was... I don't remember the name of it right now, but I can find it. Maybe I'll find it later.
You're the only person I know that can game and not remember what it was.
I don't remember the title.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you that we showed up at the base camp and we were making a move towards Jormungandr, and it's a later in the season one, so it's kind of wrapping up a lot of the, the check boxes at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
This one is one of those results of earlier check boxes scenarios.
Oh, okay.
I played it with Jamin, my staff Magus, which is nice because he's pretty straightforward. He's a nice, easy guy to run, both power-wise and personality-wise. He's just says what's on his mind.
I'm going to be breaking out one of my one character here for Gen Con.
Well, because you're more of a GM.
Well, yeah, but basically I've got this little halfling ranger that theoretically exists and has been collecting boons but does not actually exist, and he's gonna finally get to strut his stuff here soon, and he's done a lot for a character that's never seen play. Like, how in the world am I gonna sit down with a 5th level character I've never touched before?
Oh, Kevin A. Turner. That was the name of the... it wasn't Kevin Murphy, it was Kevin A. Turner. Thank you, Thomas LeBlanc, for reminding me of that.
So PaizoCon was mostly Season 5 stuff then?
Mostly Season 5 stuff. We did have the Season 6 kickoff, which I'm kind of confused, because I know there was a Season 5 ender and a Season 6 beginner that's happening at Gen Con, and this was described as the Season 6 kickoff, and it's coded 6-00, but it's
right.
Legacy of the Stormlords, and it's storming Jormungandr, which has been the meta plot for Season 5. It felt completely like a conclusion to the previous season, and at the very, very end, a hint of the 6th season.
Yeah.
So maybe I've got my information wrong, but I definitely know there's 2 different specials happening at PaizoCon, at Gen Con.
The other one is the Paths We Choose, which is weird because it's the first special that's a limited level range.
Yes, and that is definitely a Season 6 one. So anyway, it's a technicality that it's coded 6-00 instead of 5- whatever they could have coded an end of season special. But I can say this about this, and I'm not going to give any spoilers for it, but I enjoyed Legacy of the Stormlords pretty much on par of my enjoyment of the Siege of the Diamond City.
Really?
The format is very similar.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it's very similar. You're moving around different areas. This one was a little bit more linear, but not so linear that it felt forced in any one direction. We had an end goal rather than a playground. But it just meant the tension was building up as we went further into the adventure.
Okay. I like the idea. This sounds like, this is spoiler free, but this sounds like it's going to be a 1,000-person dungeon crawl.
Yes, that is a good way of describing it.
This must be a huge dungeon.
It is a sky citadel.
This is true.
The dwarves
It's a
may be
city.
small, but they make big architecture.
Yeah, but they're round, so they still need as much floor plan. So how many rolls, reflex rolls, do you have to make to avoid bumping your head?
None. I was a dwarf.
Oh.
Yeah, I got to play Stone Throw, and Stone Throw has tons of Jormungandr related boons, so that was pretty awesome. Most of them are actually +1s, and ultimately I was looking at them like, oh, this gives me very little, as a matter of fact. But it was nice being able to like brag that I'm a, what was it, Sky Citadel expert. And then I also, because I'd done Siege of the Diamond City, I had a thing interacting with other NPCs. There was a lot of really cool things where I just got to be like, well, I do know this in character and out of character because I've played these adventures, and it was cool that it had numeric effects and really resonated in the adventure. So there has been so much more meta plot in Season 5 than I'm used to in any other season, or at least I've been paying closer attention to it, and it all pays off in Season 6-00.
Okay, sweet. I'm definitely looking forward to this one, playing it at Gen Con. I mean, my whole group's coming with us, and they're going to be running through it. And this is the group that's also been playing through Wrath of the Righteous, so they're like super pumped on everything to do World Wound and all that jazz.
I do want to give a shout out to Justin Riddler,
Okay.
who sat at my table, and he and his husband Ryan Shepler played buffers. So
Okay.
they were these two buffing halflings that both rode. One of the two characters was a cavalier, and they both rode his animal companion.
Uh-huh.
And they brought buffing to a whole new level. If people want to go to the No Direction Facebook page right now, I just posted a picture of Justin Riddler's wall of buffs. Now, this isn't the first time I've seen someone use just a visual aid to represent the buffs that are going on at the table. But the amount of extra effort that Justin put into his visual buffs was amazing. So, first of all, because he and Ryan, both their characters buff, the visual handout has one of the two characters' faces on it, so you know which one is giving you the buff. They gave these buffs interesting names. So it wasn't just strictly the name of the ability, but they gave them flavorful names. They write exactly what the buff is, what it's to, what type it is, where it's coming from, and if you're curious about any of it, you flip it over and all of the math is written out clearly, concisely. It's visually interesting, visually clear. So I was going in there as the only tank in the party. We had, or maybe I wasn't the only tank in the party, but the two of them were just there to buff up the rest of the party. My friend Sarah was playing her witch, so she was debuffing the bad guys. And then it was the three other characters, me, my animal companion Joey, and the two other players at the table. We were all just getting the benefits of plus 15 to AC and plus 10 each round. And if we got hit, they had immediate actions that could add another plus 9 to our AC. It was insane how efficient we were moving and how easy it was to calculate everything because of all these great visual aids. So we were destroyed Jormungandr from the inside out, and it was super satisfying because I feel like no character I've ever played has been as prepared for one adventure as Stone Throw has been prepared for Legacy of the Stone Lords.
Oh, wow. I'm looking at this wall of buffs right now, and that is incredibly awesome.
Yeah, right?
I just bought, for a completely separate reason, a whole bunch of those little stands they're using.
Those are just dollar store picture stands that they would tent their papers over. And, I mean, it was taking up a lot of space at the table, but because everyone benefits from it, it wasn't taking up more than their space at the table.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Stealing that idea.
Also, if anyone's looking for clues at this picture, those minis don't represent what we were fighting in there. So there's no ice trolls in, or maybe there's no ice trolls in Legacy of the Stone Lords.
You say that now, but that's just what an ice troll would say.
No, that wasn't my only encounter with Justin Riddler that weekend. He was on my team for the Pathfinder Trivia Contest, which is a tradition of the banquet. After the banquet, they give 10-15 minutes for people to clear out, decide whether they're staying or going, And then they have 5 rounds of trivia that in the past have been insanely difficult, and only someone of Moorland levels of understanding of Pathfinder campaign setting could you get a decent score at it, a passing score. And then they slowly became easy, and in the last 2 years it's been a good sweet spot where they've divided it up into different categories so that no one person should be able to answer all of those questions. The first round was about Paizo as a company and Paizo staff, so I thought I was going to dominate that round because of the podcast,
Right.
But unfortunately, oftentimes, after bragging about how well I'm going to do that round, the questions would come and I would just be like,
huh?
Yeah, stone-faced and terrified. Luckily, Justin Riddler interned at Paizo, and so we had the inside scoop on a lot of that, and we actually got a perfect round the first round, which is good because the second round was the RPG round, and it was insanely difficult. There were questions like, there are 9 monsters in Bestiary 1 that have a poison that does an effect other than ability damage. Name 3 of them.
Ouch!
Yep. The only one we got was Drow, and Drow was the only one that they were like, okay, we'll accept it because it's not really a poison ability, it's just that they come armed with poison. And then the 5th question of that round was insane. It was, a player is playing a 10th level Elven Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
He is armed with a +3 Mighty Shocking Composite Longbow +4. His ability scores are 16 Strength, 20 Dexterity. He has favorite enemy monstrous creature, monstrous creature, some kind of just monster. +6, and then he had 2 other ones. He's wearing full plate. These are the bonus feats he took. He is shooting this distance. What is his to hit bonus at the end of it?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And there were a couple of red herrings, like, so he's a ranger, he's not proficient in heavy armor, which means that for the full plate, he would be taking the armor check penalty to the full plate against his attack bonus, but it was masterwork, so he was taking 1 less than the armor check penalty, which we had to know off the top of our head. A ranger in full plate loses their bonus feats, so those 3 bonus feats he had don't actually apply. He was taking a penalty for not being quite strong enough for his bow. It ended up being like a -3, I think, was ultimately his to hit, but it was just insane. Everyone was just like chattering, like, okay, what's a red herring? What is absolutely going to apply? And it was staggering math, and unfortunately we didn't get it or most of that round's questions right. But I will forever remember that question. The details of it were just amazing. Then we had a couple of rounds where it was campaign setting. There was adventures specifically. And I'm forgetting what the last round was, but it was a good time. My group, the Hands of Vengeance and Friends, we came right in the middle. We weren't really in contention after the RPG round, unfortunately. But what was really cool is that of the group that won, one of the people in the group was the new designer, Mark Sifter's wife, Linda. And so she doesn't need the prize, which is a gift certificate to Paizo. So she found out that there was like an 11-year-old kid that got 8 of the 12 questions that one of the teams got right. And so she just handed off she just handed off the gift certificate she won to this kid, and it was a $75 gift certificate, which to an 11-year-old kid is all the money in the world.
Right.
So that was a nice moment, and overall, sometimes the trivia contest gets super competitive, but all of the teams were really cool. They were really keeping it casual, and I would say that there was a good time had by all. Karzook has arrived.
Of course he has. He keeps getting caught in their spam filter, too. I'm glad that Google protects us from Rune Lords.
It is getting a little late, Param. Are there any questions you have for me about PaizoCon?
No, honestly, not really, because you did such a good job on Facebooking everything, and what you've talked about is I've kind of got a good feeling of what it was like this year. Was there any like third-party stuff that really stood out to you?
Oh, Yes. Okay. Legendary Games is about to become the biggest name in third-party publishing. They are releasing it's a planet-hopping adventure path, but it's stargating from planet to planet, so there's no like spaceship design rules or anything like that. But
Uh-huh.
I spoke with Neil Spicer and Jason Nelson about this adventure path plan. That it was like I said, can we sit down for 10 minutes and talk about this? I got a 40-minute private seminar on Legendary Games plans, which are like, they're amazing from a story point of view. Neil clearly has this gigantic vision for a whole campaign setting that will be launched by this adventure path, which will be done in 7 parts, and that they've already got all kinds of excited freelancers, like big names from Paizo, as Legendary Games is known to associate with. Big names are already attached to this adventure path. He's super excited about it. The way they're going to promote it is interesting. The marketing behind it is interesting. So I don't have to go into it because I've got the recording and it comes straight from Legendary Games themselves. But in just a couple of years, Legendary Games has gone from a really interesting third-party company that has a really high-quality products to someone that may be ready to branch away from being a third-party publisher of Paizo material to being a full-on independent RPG producer. Like, I think we're going to be comparing Legendary Games to Green Ronin in the next couple of years, or maybe even Fantasy Flight Games' role-playing game division.
Well, I was already impressed with their production quality, but I did not see them going this route. I thought they were more of a support publisher.
And one of the things Jason says is as much success as they've had with the products that are supporting the RPG line, the Adventure Path line, every time they talk about the product, they have to have that cagey, like, oh, this is that adventure. It would fit real in an adventure where you're building a kingdom, because they can't say Kingmaker because that's outside of the scope of the third-party license.
Right.
Whereas now they're going to have full control over the adventure paths that they support, and they're going to continue to support the Paizo stuff, but that's not going to be their primary focus anymore. They're going to have a split focus.
Okay. Yeah, because it must be insane trying to market that.
Well, now's a good time for the planet hopping adventure path, because with the Numeria sets adventure path with Iron Gods coming out, we're getting rules for all of the sci-fi elements that might be found on the different planets, and so they don't even have to develop that stuff. Paizo is developing it for them, putting it on the PRD, not even just in the open content package, but on the official PRD, so people will have easy access to this stuff. So you'll be able to do your John Carter of Mars style space adventure that would be a little bit too far, we assume, for Paizo to go. But an established third-party company like Legendary Games could be all over that and really just own it.
Okay, small break. I completely support this. This is awesome. But too far for Paizo to go? We fought Rasputin last year.
Fair enough. Oh, that was one of the good questions in the trivia. What year is it on Earth? Because we know what year it is in Galarian, and we know when they traveled to Earth. So what year was it then, and how many years ago was it that we traveled to Earth was basically the question. So current year Galarian, what year is it Earth?
Oh, gosh. Oh, what? Wait, huh?
For Rasputin Must Die, they travel through space but not time.
Right.
So that was last year of Galarian time.
Right.
But it was during the Russian Revolution, our time. So what time? What is the date on current Earth? No, what is the date on Galarian's present Earth?
Okay, so. Okay.
I'm only going to be able to give you so much time to be quiet on the podcast, unfortunately, Barra.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math. So the current year in Galarian would be 4895?
Possibly.
Possibly.
No, 94. It would end in a 4 because it ends in... No, it would end in a 14 because the last 2 digits parallel our current present, which is actually in Galarian's future. I have to warn you, Param, this was one that the whole table had to agree on by committee. I don't know if you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I don't think I can because yeah, I'm gonna concede on this one.
Okay, it is 1919 on the Earth of modern-day Galarian, which is a year after 1918, which is when Rasputin dies in Rasputin
Okay,
Must Die.
I was answering a completely different question,
Okay.
which I was asking. I was assuming what year in Galarian is it today?
Oh no, the opposite. What year is it on Earth to Galarians today?
Oh, yeah, okay.
There we go.
That's an
Anthony
easier
Lee says
question.
current year is 4714 in Galarian.
Okay. That's an easier question. I was trying to. Okay, so you go 19, 19, and no! Which
So
is
the
why.
short way of answering it is if you know what year uh, Rasputin Must Die is set and how many
Right.
years ago it was published.
And you
But
have
if you
one.
don't know that, but you do know that it takes place during the Russian Revolution around World War One, then you can use your real world history to answer this question with a little bit of nudging room.
Right. All right. Well, I think with that done, we should move on to our no question segment.
It's 10:30. It's too late for no questions.
Alrighty. So let's move on to our shoutouts.
In the shoutout segment. Oh wait, well, thank you for joining us for No Directions episode 88, the Pathfinder News Reviews and Interviews podcast, and I'm going to do that again. Thank you for joining us for No Direction episode 88. Before we go, we do want to give a shout out to a couple of things that we believe will be of interest to our Pathfinder and Sirenscape. We're going to give them an extra shout out, even though we talked about them earlier in the podcast, just because Ben was such a cool guy to hang out with. And I believe, as I mentioned in, you know what, I'm not going to spoil something that I mentioned in the interview with him. I recommend people check out the interview with him when it comes out. I'm not actually sure when it will because it's not scheduled like the seminars are. But I do want to get it out fairly soon because it does have spoilers about the No Direction Sirenscape content package.
Oh. Yes.
But I enjoy Ben as a person and as a gamer and as a supporter of Pathfinder stuff.
Now, a shout out I want to make is actually something I learned about on Wes's blog, so it's actually shouting out an experience he had that's pretty cool to read. For those of you that don't know, PaizoCon shares it up until this year, including this year, shares its con space and con time with a BronyCon called Everfree. For those of you that don't know, bronies are fans of My Little Pony, the new TV show. And they found out that they were running a game called Pony Finder, which is a My Little Pony adaptation of Pathfinder. So Wes got the team to sign a GM screen that he was going to present to the GM running the table, when he found out that it was actually a seminar with a couple of hundred Pony Finder fans in there, which they did not know that was an audience. So so I'm shouting out to Wes's blog where he tells this story with pictures of the GM screen, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link to the Pony Finder campaign setting, which evidently was kickstarted and massively successful, and is a giant hardcover book. I haven't read it, so I can't give an opinion on how well this captures Pathfinder balance or the show in any measurable fashion, but for those of you that are interested, that's something I was surprised to learn about.
In fact, Pony Finder was on sale at the Paizo store at the con, and they do have, I believe, Griffins. A Griffin expansion is up on Kickstarter right now because they had so much success with the original release that they're going to be releasing support material for Pony Finder, the pony-themed Pathfinder game. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the bronies ate it up.
Excellent.
I believe I've gone on record as saying I enjoy bronies. I am not a brony myself, but I believe that the bronies represent the best of subculture. That I may not be a brony, but I will defend to the death their right to brony.
Yeah, they seem to be an incredibly positive subculture, which is something we don't see a lot. So awesome on them. And if they're going to make RPG material, I'm glad they chose Pathfinder.
I have a couple of shoutouts that are less than related to Pathfinder material, but more than related to things I'm interested in. First of all, I
Okay.
have to give a big shout out to the project I'm working on right now, Comic Bento. Are you a fan of comics? Do you want a blind box of $50+ worth of comics delivered to your door every month for $20? That's what I'm doing right now with Blind Ferret. My job is the project manager of Comic Bento, which is a blind box subscription service where you just sign on and we will ship you once a month a box, the contents of which you don't know, but we guarantee it'll be $50 or more. And we're about to ship out our first one, and we're going to put about $80 of comics in a $20 box. That's going to be shipped to you within the next couple of days. You've got one more day to sign up for it. And so if you're interested in a whole bunch of comic trade paperback material and interested in supporting me and making me look good to my boss, Ryan Somer, then I encourage you to go to comicbento.com, subscribe, give it a 1 month to give it a try, or if you go 3 months or 6 months, you get more and more discounts per box. And yeah, I think it's fun. This is something that if I wasn't in charge of, I would seriously consider subscribing to.
Now, is it just the comic book material themselves, or is there also like swag material in the boxes?
No, this is purely going to be books. It's purely going to be majority trade paperbacks. We may put a floppy in there every now and then, but we didn't want to give someone like She-Hulk #7, where you're getting part of a storyline that you don't know the beginning or the end of. We want you to be able to get a trade paperback that it's like, here are 6 collected issues that may not tell the entire story for this character, but tell the beginning, middle, and end of a story involving this character. And we've got Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Image Comics, Dark Horse Comics, Archie Comics, Blind Ferret, of course. So you're going to get a nice variety of comics as well as a bunch of indie stuff. Every single box is going to have at least one big-name, recognizable comic book character's comic in there, one thing you may never have heard of. It's going to be a nice variety of cool things. In the future, we're going to set it to a theme. Right now, the first month's theme is just Sampler. So actually, no two people are going to get the same Comic Bento in the first month. Eventually, everyone's going to get the same content, no matter where they are.
Okay. Sounds like a cool option. This whole crate box phenomenon creeping up is a neat idea. I've been tempted by more than one of them, and this is tempting.
I'll put in a good word for you, Barrow. Won't get you very far, but
Sure.
The good word will be there.
Yes.
Finally, another not quite related to Pathfinder, but a little bit more related than the other one. Boss Fight Studios is an independent action figure producers. They've been contracted by Hasbro to do a lot of the heads for G.I. Joe action figures lately, especially the high-end ones that the G.I. Joe Collector Club has been making. They're trying to create their own line of action figures called Vitruvian Hacks. Hack is an acronym for highly articulated something. In any case, they're making action figures, and the first line is fantasy-based. It's based on Greek myth, and the majority of the action figures they're releasing are either Medusa-based or like a Greek soldier-based. They've funded, they've overfunded, they've got a bunch of add-ons, but the add-on that I really want is an action figure called Stone Fist. Stone Fist was a Greek soldier that, to fight Medusa, cut out his own eyes, but he still saw enough of her that his hand turned to stone. So his entire left arm is stone, and his eyes are scratched out, and he scratched out the eyes of his shield. And this is not someone that's based on any kind of legend. This is completely made up by the Boss Fight Studios conceptual team, whatever their writing team is. I really want to get Stone Fist. Stone Fist really intrigues me. And they need to raise another several $1,000s to do it, and they've got until the end of the week. So if you look at it and you're like, oh, hey, I would really like that Medusa action figure, you can get her for about $30. And your $30 will contribute towards me being able to buy Stone Fist. And I can vouch for the quality of their sculpting. I can vouch for the quality of the articulation. These guys know what they're doing. They are doing better G.I. Joe content than Hasbro is doing right now. So, if you're at all inclined, I'm not forcing anyone to do it, I'm not benefiting from this, other than that I get to buy more toys from these people who make really awesome toys.
Now, what's the scale on these guys? They look really detailed.
These guys are about 4 inches, so it's about the size of a modern G.I. Joe action figure.
Okay.
Which, let's see if I've got a modern G.I. Joe action figure handy. I don't. I do, but I'd have to get up.
Yeah. Well, it's most of our listeners are listeners, so.
Oh, there's that too. All right. Well, the '80s GI Joe was listed as 3 3/4 inches. The original Destro figure was the tallest of those original figures, and he was about 4 inches. So actually, I guess the modern GI Joe figure is about 5 inches. They're still listed as 3 3/4 inches, but they do stand about. Their chin touches the top of a Real American Hero 1980s figure's head.
Okay, so it's similar to the fact that technically we play with 28mm figures that have been 35mm for a while now.
Exactly. Actually, if you've picked up any of the Hasbro released Marvel superheroes, those are the exact same scale as G.I. Joe is now.
Oh, not the Legend ones, but the smaller ones?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah, and so this is going to be the exact same scale, although I think these guys are going to be a little more buff.
Yeah, they should be. Except Hercules. He should be more buff. All right.
That's it for our list. Maybe we should have actually ended on a Pathfinder note. Let me see if there's anything. You know, I'm going to give a shout out to Jim Groves. I only first met Jim in person at PaizoCon, but I had dinner with his wife and him and Anthony, and he was a lovely person, very creative person. And he describes himself as a shy person, but he was completely out of his shell. So he was basically completely in his element, and I can completely sympathize because there are times that I just feel shy, and a lot of people won't believe that. So shout out to Jim Groves. It was great to meet you. I look forward to talking to you online and in person in the future.
All right.
So until next time, I'm Ryan Costello Jr.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And if you want to find the path, you need no direction. I think we can call this one done. Thanks a lot, everybody that listened live, especially the people that were filling me in on information I didn't have yet about PaizoCon.
Yeah, neither of us have had a chance to listen through the audio, and Brian hasn't even edited any of it.
Nope.
All right, guys. I'm going to cut the broadcast. Good talking with you guys again. Later.